Are you struggling building new rockets in Kerbal Space Program? Don't you know how to bring your Kerbals into space and then back safely at home? Don't you worry, in this video I got you covered. Hello everyone, my name is Pietro and I figured that with the release of KSP2 it might be a good idea to make some short video tutorials about how to do the basic things that every Kerbal Space Program player should know how to do. Therefore, in this first video I'm gonna try and explain what to do and how to build a rocket to get into orbit around Kerbin with one Kerbal inside of a crew module and then come back safely to splash down close to the Kerbal Space Center. We can get straight into the building, therefore let's start with the Tinkan MK1 command module, adding a parachute obviously to recover our Kerbal later, and then we need to add the decoupler below to make sure that we can detach actually from the upper stage. A good size for this kind of upper stage is the FLT 400 followed by a Terrier engine. Then obviously we go on with another decoupler and below that add an FL800 as the first stage tank, and we are gonna add also two boosters on the side, so come here and take two side decouplers and add them on the sides in dual symmetry. This can be done by pressing once X on your keyboard. We can then go on adding the engines, and this time around we're gonna choose the LVT45 swivel engines, which can gimbal, therefore allow us to control better the spacecraft during the launch. We add some nose cones at the top of our boosters to be more aerodynamics and more stable, and also for stability we are gonna add in 4x symmetry, therefore pressing other 2 times the X button on the keyboard, we're gonna add these small little wings. Afterwards, to simplify the launch process, we can add 2 launch clamps, so pressing Shift and X other 2 times, we are gonna go back to dual symmetry, or you can cycle all the way around by pressing X a few times. We add the launch clamps to be more stable on the launch pad. We lower the spacecraft closer to the ground, otherwise the launch clamps are gonna be as tall as they were previously in the build. And then we can obviously check our staging and make so that all the 3 engines start when the launch clamps get released, and then we put the second stage engine that activates when we decouple from the first stage. Now, by clicking on the engineer report, we can see that our rocket right now has a thrust to weight ratio of 1.95. This is very high and we can reduce it a little bit. To do that and to manage better the fuel consumption and the thrust levels of the engines, we can just toggle from the part manager the max thrust level of the engines. I did in this case a 60% for the side boosters and a 50% for the central core, just to make sure that the boosters were gonna actually run out quite some time before of the central engine, just to make it, let's say, more realistic, and also to have a longer burn of the main stage that was gonna take us closer to orbit. Then we can just give a name to our spacecraft, save it in some workspace and get ready to launch. Choose down there from which launchpad we want to go, recover some stuff from the launchpad because I wanted to launch from launchpad 1, and then load directly and straight to the launchpad, which in this game is way faster than in KSP1. Now, here we are, ready, quickly cycle through all the cameras and then just hit space and launch. Now that we're ready for takeoff, the trajectory is gonna be quite simple and the basic, most standard entrance into orbit of Kerbal Space Program. We just go straight for the beginning of the flight, and having the booster and having the fins helps us to stay stable during this part, and we can slowly start to tilt our rocket towards the east, so toward the number 90 that we can see on the nav ball, by using the D key. When it's gonna be the time, we let go of the key and decouple the boosters, trying to avoid them bouncing into the main core of our rocket, and then once we get up to the height of about 30 kilometers from the sea level, we can flatten out practically our trajectory, because we are gonna have enough height that our rocket is not gonna fall back towards Kerbin. When it's gonna be the time, we can decouple also the first stage and burn until our apoapsis, our IP down there in the bottom left of the screen, doesn't reach about 130 kilometers. That's a good height that I like to go to, also because at 120 kilometers from the ground we unlock the 1000 times time warp. Now you can see me using another of the basic feature of Kerbal Space Program, which is creating a maneuver, planning a maneuver. In this case it's called a maneuver planner, and I try to plan a maneuver at the AP of my orbit, at the highest point of my orbit from the ground of Kerbin, to then circularize and make a circularization burn as soon as we're gonna get there. So we can time travel by using the hotkeys of full stop and comma, or also by using the UI interface by left clicking on the time travel arrows in the bottom center of the screen. And once we are gonna get there, we can perform our burn. So just throttle up the rocket by using the UI or by using shift, as we could have done previously too, and burn until the apoapsis and the periapsis are not at the same height, more or less, and they are both outside of the atmosphere. So congratulations, now you just got into orbit, which is a great achievement. Valentina is super proud of being here, super happy that the rocket that you just built worked. But there are a few things that I just wanted to say. I stayed in the map view while performing the burn. That is because switching view, like going to the rocket and then back to the map, for me resets the amount of delta V that I need to give. Therefore, I just prefer staying in the map view that also shows me the trajectory of my orbit, and in this way I do not have to just rely on the height of PE and AP at the bottom left of the screen. So, okay, we completed the first part of this challenge, which was getting into orbit, as we said. Now it's gonna be the time to go back. And what we wanna do, we wanna land as close as possible to the Kerbal Space Center. Why is that? Well, style points, first of all. And secondly, we know that in the career mode and in the science mode, the closer you land to the KSC, which we are just flying above right now, the better, the more points you get, the more money you get back from your recovered parts. Therefore, what we wanna do is go on the opposite side of Kerbin with respect to the peninsula that is a little bit in front of the Kerbal Space Center that you just saw there on the map. Once we get to the opposite side of it, we can stop the time warp and burn in retrograde direction with our upper stage until our pericenter, our PE there on the map view, does not drop at about 30 kilometers of height from the surface of the Sea of Kerbin, which means that we are inside of the atmosphere with our PE. We are gonna begin a re-entry on the opposite side of the planet with respect to where we performed the burn, and that is gonna make us re-enter exactly in the sea in front of the KSC. Therefore now we can just time warp until we are not gonna drop inside of the atmosphere, and at that moment our time travel is gonna stop at times 4, and here we can orient our spacecraft. I like to do it in normal or anti-normal and then deploy the second stage. This allows us to not have the upper stage run into us or risking that we will run into it while re-entering the atmosphere. Now in Kerbal Space Program 2 there is no re-entry effect, so there's not gonna be anything exciting, if not some lag due to the game processing the physics. We can just orient the spacecraft retrograde to be in a passively stable position and fast forward during our re-entry until we are gonna get at the correct height for the parachute deployment. I like to deploy the parachutes when we are at a velocity which is below 300 meters per second, so quite a lot below the speed of sound, so that we are sure that the parachutes do not destroy during the deployment, and it's what you're gonna see me do here. I stop the time acceleration, I deploy the parachute, then restart the time warp until I get at about 1000 meters from the ground level, which is the height at which the parachutes deploy, and then again time warp until I get to the surface, and actually stop the time warp just before hitting the surface, being it of the sea or directly the ground of Kerbin. So yeah, congratulations, we just returned from a successful orbital mission around Kerbin. I hope that you found this video useful. May consider subscribing for other Kerbal Space Program 2 videos and tutorials. Wish you a good day, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye bye!